back to the A Dresden Quilt Along. We are on chapter 4. So if you have missed anything or haven't signed up or want to know more details about this quilt along, there is a link to do so right below this video. We are around halfway through. So at this point, we've made 12 of our Dresden blocks. 12 blocks, and we have 30 blocks in this quilt. 20 of them have the Dresden plates on them. So the other 10 are just going to be your background without, you know, the plate. And because December is such a hectic month, it's sometimes very overwhelming for a lot of us, it's a good month to skip the Dresden plates and just do the background. So I want you to make another 6 blocks, but you choose how many of them have a plate on it. Just remember that for this entire quilt, you're going to have 10 blocks without a plate. But that should put a little bit of ease on this chapter. It might give you time to catch up on some of the blocks that you haven't done already. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make 5 background blocks without the plate, and I'm going to make 1 block with the plate. The reason I want to make 1 block with the plate is I wanted to spend this chapter talking about the Microquilter thread, because I was reached out by maybe 2 or 3 of you saying that you were struggling with it. So I wanted to go over that one more time. So that's what we're going to spend this chapter on, this chapter's video on. All right, so I'm just going to start on my 6 background blocks. I'm gonna get these completed. We're gonna go at these the way we always do, and I am gonna batch sew mine. So I need to get these made, and then I will make my 1 Dresden plate that I'm making. And when I get to the part where we start using the Microquilter to top stitch, I'm going to stop and then have a chat about it. And then talk to you about a few things that could help. Okay, I have all of my background blocks sewn, and I have 1 of them with that Dresden plate pinned into place, and I am ready to top stitch. And we're going to talk about the Microquilter thread now. All right, so this is what I recommended to use for top stitching your Dresden plates, which is, in case, making sure we're all on the same page, the little thread that goes right on top that holds the plate to your background. I would never piece with this thread. It's too thin. All right, but top stitching, and there's a couple of other things. It's a great thing to do with this thread, and the reason that I want to use this thread is because it's so thin that you can't see it when I top stitch it. If seeing thread on your Dresden plate doesn't bother you, then don't let it bother you on my account. I think my Dresden plates are prettier when the thread doesn't show up. So that's my whole reason for using the Microquilter. The Microquilter, if I haven't said this already, it's a 100-weight thread. And this may be the first time you've used something so thin in your machine. I piece all of my stuff with this So Fine, and it's a 50-weight thread. I use it in my top thread, and I use it in my bobbin. And most of the time, the needle that you're using is probably for a 40, 50, or 60-weight thread. This thread requires a different needle. And when I say requires, it will do the job with any needle, but it'll do the job with more ease if you use the needle that is recommended. And here it is, the 70 by 10. You don't have to get this brand, but the 70-10 needle is what you're after, and it's for thin thread. I actually keep this in my machine all the time, so I'm using it this needle when I piece with this thread. So that, if you're not piecing with the 70-10, maybe swap your needle, and that might help you if you're having any kind of tension issues. I only use the Microquilter in my top thread. I don't use it in the bobbin when I'm top stitching. All right. I actually use the Microquilter in my bobbin when I'm free motion quilting. I don't know I don't know if that's something you care about, but just FYI, I use it there. But when I'm top stitching, I just leave the So Fine thread or my 50 weight thread in my bobbin. And you can't see that on my Dresden plates, so it works out pretty well. All right, so that's a little bit about the thread size, the reasons why, what I'm putting in my bobbin. And let's let you look at my machine. All right, if you find that it is annoying to change threads, you are not alone. I do not like changing threads either, but I also like, you know, things coming out a certain way. So if you're particular, this may be, you know, something that you have to do every now and then. Just to reiterate, I've got Microquilter in my top thread. I've got So Fine in my bobbin thread, and it's going to be okay. And one thing that I want to do immediately is turn up the stitch length on my machine. So if you have a computerized machine, this is going to look a little bit differently, but most of the time we sew piecing at a 2. All right, and because Microquilter is so thin, that 2 is going to be very, very hard for it to handle. If I sewed it with a 2, for one, it would look so tight and the tension would get so like it's pulling too much, and it just wouldn't look pretty, and it wouldn't settle flat. So for that reason, I turn it up to the 2.75. Now, this may be a little bit different if you're working on a different machine. Maybe it's computerized. If it's computerized, you should get to a 2.75, you know, nicely. But just because my machine is sewing Microquilter good at 2.75 doesn't mean yours is. So you might want to play around with this stitch length before you go to the tension. I do not like messing with this. There's occasions when you absolutely have to, but I avoid it at all cost. All right, so what I want you to do is, if you are experiencing tension issues with the Microquilter thread, first, I want you to turn your stitch length up. If you still have issues when you get to 2.75, change your needle to the 70-10 needle. Again, no matter what brand you buy, 70-10 needle is what you're after. If those two things doesn't fix whatever issues you're having, go ahead and turn it up a little bit more. And I wouldn't go past a 3, by the way. Go ahead and turn it up one more little notch and see if that takes care of your problem. Only then would I recommend you messing with this. And if you do need to mess with this, I would recommend turning your tension down, not up. So I hope those two things fix your issues. Let me start sewing this, and I'll give you a look at the finished Dresden plate with the thread, with the Microquilter stitched on it. All right, I'm starting to stitch, and I just thought I would give you a little close-up of this. And while we're at it, I had a couple people talk about knee lifts. And if your machine didn't come with a knee lift, you know, that's one thing. And sewing on a machine without one is going to get you used to constantly lifting this up, right? But if you have a knee lift and you're not using it, I want to encourage you to bring it out, because what I'm doing is lifting with my knee, you know, every time. And it just kind of makes sewing these Dresden plates so much easier. It's not with difficulty to do this, but it just feels a little bit smoother to me. And, you know, my hand's not always having to do that, which, you know, you may not mind, but if you have one, use it, because you will get used to using that knee lift, and it will be, eventually it's going to be like the best thing ever. And you're going to, if you ever go back to a machine that doesn't have one, you're going to be groaning. Now, a machine that has a knee lift is like one of my, if it doesn't have a knee lift, I don't buy that machine. And that's going to be different from everybody, but I did want to mention, I had a lot of people say they never use their knee lift. And I was like, what? So I know we're all different and everybody likes different things, but this in particular is easier with the knee lift. Okay. Do a couple back stitches. And done. And there's what it looks like on the front. There's what it looks like on the back. All right, so I'm just going to set the seams of the plate where I've just top stitched, just to get it to lay a little bit flatter, and then get it to, if there are tiny little bits of tension issues, it takes care of them. And then for this block, I feel like I need just a little bit of starch right at those seams to make it a little bit flatter. This starch really does, it's not really starch, by the way, it's pressing spray. I keep saying it wrong. This starch, you know, just kind of makes everything, look at that, lay down flatter. And I'm going to have better piecing as a result of this, you know, extra effort. And really, I say extra effort, it doesn't take that long to do. So there it is. And I just need to get my center put on, which I'll do next. And here are my other background blocks ready to go. Let me show you these on the design wall. All right, so there is a look at my blocks so far. And I think it's shaping up pretty nicely. Yeah, I'm pretty pleased. So at this point, we have 18 blocks completed, and 13 of them have Dresden plates. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that video, and if you were someone who is struggling with tension issues, hopefully that helped you. If it didn't help and you decide that Microquilter is not for you, that's okay too. I like to give out all these tips and tricks because people are always asking for them, and they're what works for me. But just because it works for me doesn't mean it works for you. So take what you need from these lessons and ditch the rest. All right, so let's talk about our prizes and giveaway for this chapter. Our chapter 4 giveaway takes place on December 20th. I think you have until the end of the 19th to get your entries in. And we're giving away a bunch of books. So a copy of my quilt journal in both colors, a copy of my first book, A Life with Quilts, and then a copy of my latest book, Stash Work. We are having quilt-alongs for all 4 patterns in this book next year. So there will be a link or a button in your email for chapter 4 that will get you signed up for this giveaway. So remember that you're not automatically entered to the giveaway. You have to go and enter the giveaway. There are extra entries, so definitely take advantage of those. I think everybody who's won so far has had like 5, 6, 7 entries each. So enter all the ways, and good luck. Yeah, so I will see you next time. Thank you for watching, and don't forget that if you have any questions, concerns, or having issues, let me know. That could be something I talk about next week. I will see you then.